Hi, Gaurav.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon for you already?
It's still morning here. It's 11:30 here.
11, yeah.
Close, yeah.
Cool. Quite a few people already joined. Gaurav, we'll probably take 2 more minutes and let others join, and then we'll get started.
Yep, sounds good.
Somehow, I don't know, I have to admit everyone. Usually, I don't have to, but then I think I didn't turn on some sort of setting. So I'm having to admit everyone right now. Okay, it's 4-2. There are quite a few of us already. I'm sure like a lot more people will keep joining. But let's get started because I'm super excited about this session. And as you guys know, today's session is all about building fast and building smart as product managers, and that too without any code, right? Um, and why I chose this topic, because we as product managers, we always have user insights. We have a lot of ideas we want to put into picture and in a visual representation, but we always don't have the engineering bandwidth to do that, right, in our organizations. So with no code MVPs, we can test things fast, pitch to stakeholders with a visual representation, and also like put together a quick prototype to get user understanding. So all of those things sort of come together to make it essential to be on top of this topic, because we have the tools now, right? With Gen AI, there are quite a few tools which Gaurav will be taking us through. So with that, I want to welcome Gaurav. Gaurav, welcome to this session. Thank you for doing this for Women in Product India. And Gaurav is an engineering leader with Spotify UK, and have been speaking with him for a few weeks. He's been helping me with some projects as well that I am undertaking. So really enjoy our conversations, Gaurav. And then we sort of decided that why not like open this expertise to the whole community. And that's how we are here today. Gaurav, welcome once again. Would like you to take the session in your hands now. We can get
Absolutely.
started.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Sati. Thanks everyone for having me. I'll start sharing my screen and then we can go through it. I've
Sure.
made a very small presentation. We'll look at this very quickly and then, of course, dive right into trying a few things out. So, the titles for the day today was very much around no code MVPs for product management. I think Swati summarized it very well, what I was thinking about explaining on what I think would be an important thing to kind of explain and learn from. So we'll kind of dive a little bit into it, and I can get started maybe just by introducing a little bit about myself. So who am I? I added a QR code in case you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. Of course, I'll be we can do that later on as well. But basically, I currently, as Fatih mentioned, work as an engineering manager at Spotify, based here in the UK. And over the last 10 years, I've been involved in the field of engineering and data for the across different companies. Previously to Spotify, I was working at Meta and Facebook back then, kind of working on leading analytics and data science team, and very closely working with PMs. And before that, I was in a few other companies and so on and so forth. I'm originally uh, from the northern side of India and studied bachelor's in India. And then I moved to Singapore and studied data science and so on and so forth. So over time, I've transitioned into the field of engineering, and I now lead a backend engineering team at Spotify. I've been at Spotify for about 4 years, and during this time, I've worked with two teams. The one that I'm working with is the backend engineering team, and the second one, or the previous team that I was part of, was the front-end engineering team. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because what I'm about to show you today is very relevant to how we basically what we want to do in this session, right? And as I mentioned, that we want to try out no-code or low-code alternatives to basically prototype and build things faster. But the question always as is like, why exactly does this matter? Why do we need to learn doing that? Because there is a process that exists right now, right? If you have a new idea as a PM, you work with your team, you basically with the UI person and so on and so forth, work with your engineering counterpart, basically get it scoped and basically take some time before you get to a point where you're like, okay, this makes sense. I probably can put together a hypothesis, whether it's possible or not, and so on and so forth, right? If that's something that you can relate to, it's something that I related to for a very long period of time when I was at my front-end team at Spotify. So the goal for that team that I used to work with was how can we make front-end changes that increases the sign-up of the product, for example, right? And this is a big problem to solve. And similarly, for all of you, you might be in the backend product side of things, you might be in the front end side of things, or you're overall taking a look at product, making product changes, and so on and so forth. Or you're thinking about starting something from scratch altogether, right? So you need to learn to be able to do prototyping, and usually this helps you clear out the flow of things, and at the same time help you explain to your engineering counterparts, which usually is me, on what exactly is the problem, what are you trying to solve, and how this looks like. Basically, learning and speaking the same language as the engineering counterpart really helps speed up the process as well. And to get you one more instance, at Spotify, for example, at a given instance, we are running about 600 experiments, trialing so many different things that are going in the app or in the web interface. And all of these, imagine if you were PM at multiple teams, you would have to do all of this stuff. It takes forever to come up with a hypothesis and do all of this kind of stuff, work with the UI team, work with the engineering team to see what is possible, what is not possible, and so on and so forth. So, and from my experience, it almost took me 2 weeks for the PM in my team and us to kind of work together to basically come to a point where we understood fairly cleanly what exactly we're trying to do before we get to a point where we say like, okay, let's start thinking about what the implementation could look like and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to present today is basically trying to cut short that period so that you can move in with different ideas without having to rely on other people and basically move faster. And making changes to existing products, for example, are even more complicated because it just has so much more knowledge that you need to be aware of and so on and so forth. And in order to make those changes, you need to work with the engineering resource to understand the product. But in order to understand the product, you still need the engineering resources, and that doesn't happen, right? That's like a chicken and egg kind of situation that any organization has tech resources are very valuable, and you kind of want to make sure that that time is spent widely or wisely, actually. So my goal here is I want to show you how to move maybe not 10x faster, but like fast enough that you can build your own prototypes without having to wait for other people or make some changes to your existing product. That's the use case that we will take quite seriously today. And why do I think, as I mentioned, you need to do prototype? There's quite a few things, but just to summarize, there can be a lot of alignment meetings that you need to kind of work in to understand whether I have a feature idea or I think we should do this. Okay, what does that mean? How would that work about? What would you? A lot of these can be solved if you have a visual to kind of show and understand yourself and to your stakeholders, right? And that's what I meant by validating faster with our users or stakeholders to what you're trying. A lot of time we do user research at Spotify. We don't even show them finished product. We just show them a prototype and see what are the user sentiments. And that saves us tons of engineering resources at times as well, right? And finally, not all things that you will try or not all the hypotheses that you have are worth testing, right? A lot of times you have an idea and you think that might be helpful. You spend 2 weeks only to realize that it was not the best one to begin with. You make mistakes, right? And you can test these ones even before you work with the engineering team and so on and so forth. So that's the idea, and that's what we kind of do. And a lot of times these changes do involve you getting into the code. As long as we are talking about a technical product, we have to get into the code. We have to understand what's happening and see how much is the feasibility and so on and so forth, right? So you can ask me as a common blocker that, hey, Gaurav, but I don't code, or I don't have any interest in that because my priorities are not to do that, right? I'm not interested in making the best possible code out there, and that's fair because that's not your main priority and that's not your main goal, right? So you don't want to do that. So the solution that I provide to a lot of people, and that's what a lot of Spotify PMs are doing now, is basically you don't need to ship, you just need to show, right? And that's the hypothesis and that's the theory that you should be going in. Spotify is going very big on AI at this current moment, and we have quite a lot of tools that we are kind of trying out, and it's a mandate across the company to essentially leverage AI to as much as you can. And we are trying to figure out how, at different scales, like engineers can write code using LLMs, PMs can do prototypes using LLM, and so on and so forth. Like marketers can write better copies using LLM, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And when it comes to PMs, I think the focus should not be on building the best possible hypothesis testing tool or visuals. It should be just enough for you to show and start alignment and get the trust to kind of convince your engineering resources or engineering counterparts that this is a worth investment, an initiative that is worth investment. Yeah. So that's usually the thought process, and that's what we will probably kind of focus on a lot more. And when it comes to AI tools, you might know quite a lot of them here already. And we'll go through the breadth of things and why we'll pick one of them today to kind of go and test this out as well. So one of the code that a lot of engineers and PMs kind of use, if you're a technical PM, is VS Code, which is one of the most popular IDE. It's a code editor. You can write your code, you can build your repos, and so on and so forth. It's a really good code editor. It's probably the most widely used one. However, is it PM friendly? Definitely not. Why? Because it basically helps you write code. And if you're not someone who can write or read code, it's a bit of a problem, right? Because you want to make changes and you have to actually get into the code, and especially front-end code. That's just tricky because I remember doing my first front-end code application and I basically vowed that I'll never do that again because it's just so tricky for me, at least, to do those kind of stuff. So that's why I think that's not a good tool in terms of what you're using. Secondly, a lot of you, and basically I'm pretty sure all of you, are using ChatGPT, which is pretty good. It really helps you to kind of get a general overview, and you can ask ChatGPT for suggestions on making changes to your product and so on and so forth, which is really good for an ideation. But is it the most PM friendly way? Good enough for ideation, but when it comes to prototyping, definitely not, because it gives you a set of code and like things in that environment, and you have to bring it to your local computer of some sorts, and that becomes quite tricky already. And then that's where you lose a lot of interest already, right? And then we get to the other side of spectrum, which are like low code or no code alternatives. And the two tools that I want to kind of really focus on is Cursor, and there's another one which has another Swedish company called Lovable. Uh, Both of them are really, really good in what we are trying to kind of focus on at Spotify. So Cursor is an AI code editor. If you're aware of it, or if not, it's a code editor which basically sits on top of VS Code and essentially removes all the bottlenecks that you as a PM or me as a non-technical person, for example, will have to be able to interact with my product, right? So you can very easily and very fast do prototyping with the basic logics, with basic HTML and CSS and JS, which are like, you don't have to know everything about it, but you just have to know that these are the basic elements that I need to build a page and make changes to it. And that's good enough to get you there. And if you wanted to kind of build a lot more, then product building is basically something that Lovable and other Replit-like kind of tools offer you. What they do is basically you can build UI flows, you can build journeys, you can have a reasonable implementation. You're basically building a product altogether. And I think that's not the goal of this session. You can do that, of course. If you're building something from scratch, you can use Lovable, but be mindful that once you are in this kind of tools, you are kind of limited to the stack that you're in. So you have to build the entire product within this particular tool. And if you are not comfortable with that, then you'll struggle to essentially bring it or move it across different tools. What I mean by that is, let's say you're building an entire product and workflow in Lovable, and you want to say like, hey, I want to use a database or something, and you have a specific database that you want to use, it's not possible because Lovable has a preference for a certain database, and they will always push you towards that database. And if you say like, look, I don't want to use that, use this, that's where problem starts, because they have to redefine their entire configs and all this stuff. And in my experience, building these applications with Lovable and other tools like that, that's a big pain point, and you will probably spend countless hours just debugging as opposed to actually doing stuff. So as a PM, you probably don't need to go into that level of complexity where you are cursor kind of sits at the midpoint, which kind of offers you a good number of in code editor AI functionality that you can help and move forward with. Yeah. And this is all the presentation that I had. I'm kind of mindful of the time and also want to kind of jump right into it to basically start showing you some case studies for how you can essentially use Cursor and how you want to do this. It's more of a workshop and a hands-on thing. I'll be honest, this is the first time I'm doing it, so I'm also mindful that not everything works. LLMs are not deterministic, so 2 plus 2 always, well, it is 4, but not always comes out as 4 with LLMs. So I've done some preparation, which basically took me an hour maybe at max, which also goes on to show that this is the speed at which you can work. But we'll try and do some things together. And I'll also show you what comes out in the session itself. But at the same time, I've done some prototyping of what we can do and what finished product looked like here. So the case study is, let's say, I don't know if, how many of you, by the way, maybe a show of hand or raise your hand, like, know about Cursor, have seen the interface for Cursor by any chance? I see one.
Garvita, yeah.
Two. Okay, that's all right. So we'll take a quick look at Cursor as well. Let me show that slide first, and then we look at what are we trying to do. So this is what, if you go to cursor.com, I think this is what you see. There is the left page is what you see. It's basically an AI code editor. And there's another page at Cursor, which you can see from the headers, which is called the features page, right? So for the scope of this session, we'll stick to these two pages for now. So since we are doing prototyping with Cursor, I thought, why not let's just use Cursor itself to do some prototyping, yeah? So the problem statement was, imagine you are the PM, you're the product manager for a front-end team at Cursor, and your goal is to kind of figure out what I used to do in my previous role, figure out how can we, through different changes to the website, basically improve our conversion, improve the way that people perceive Cursor, and so on and so forth. This is one aspect of what you can do with prototyping. There is a lot more that you can do, but I preferably chose to show you this right now. And you have a few hypotheses right now, right? So the first hypothesis is you want to develop, you think that developers prefer apps with light and dark theme, because, for example, if you go to Cursor, they do not have anything where you can basically change this to a light or dark theme. It's a very simple thing, but let's say you had an idea that every single product that developers use, they always are very crazy about, they want to have different kind of themes, color palettes, and so on and so forth, right? And the second hypothesis that you have, that which is a little bit more product thinking, is if more users see our features on the front page, they will have a higher relevance, and therefore they will have a higher chance to kind of sign up. Therefore, my hypothesis is that if more users see the feature list up front in homepage, sign-up rates will improve. What I mean by that is, let's say we go to Cursor, and I'll share this tab. This is the website, right? Everything looks like this. Looks pretty neat, pretty clean. And then there is a features page. Basically, you see all the different things that you can do. You can run command, loops and errors, and whatever it is, right? But for a developer or for someone who is interested in this, my thought process is these kind of features that you can easily do, or that Cursor offers, if they're visible to you on the front page, I think you have a higher chance of finding that, oh, this looks like a better tool for me to kind of go ahead and basically sign in, or so on and so forth, right? So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to try these two exercises and see how far we can get ahead with that. Is that okay for everyone? Does anyone has any questions so far? I see a thumbs up. I see another thumbs up. So that's good. Okay, I am going to stop sharing and share another window, and then we get from there. So the way you kind of basically get started with Cursor is you just go to that website and download Cursor. That's all you need to do, literally. Let me see, what am I sharing? Yeah. Do you see a blank screen now, or is there anything else that you see?
Just a blank
Okay,
white
good,
screen.
good. So yeah, so that's basically a blank screen, and I basically downloaded Cursor, double-clicked on it, and this is what I see. This is what comes up, right? And what I did was I opened, maybe I can close this, and so this is what you will see probably. And what you will do is, I don't want to do all of this technical stuff. I just want to create a new project. So I'll open a project, and I have a folder created already. So I'm just going to open that folder. And it basically brings me to here. That's where basically we start. You are very clean. There is nothing that's created. You're starting from scratch. Yeah. And the first prompt that I want to give to Cursor is, in order to bring and make changes to Cursor home pages, we need to first create that home page in the first place, right? Because how would Cursor make changes to it? So there are two different ways that you can do it. One is you can simply take a screenshot of the home page and just drag and drop it there in the right side. As you can see here, there is a chat option, right? And that should be good enough for you to kind of get started. Or you can write a prompt. So for example, you can write a prompt that create the full home page. Yeah. Next time I will copy paste these things because I have written it down. You'll see me typing terribly, but let's see. Cursor.com, and using, let's say, clean modular HTML and CSS, because we don't want to make it complicated. We don't want to do more. Normally, if you ask Lovable or the tools, they will go ahead with the modern data stack or modern tech stack, basically React, Node.js, and so on and so forth. We don't want all of the complexity. We just want to get started and show some stuff. The HTML part is the easiest one that you need to do. And once again, you will not touch a single line of code. You're basically prompting, and Cursor is doing all the thing at the back, right? And that's basically it. So I just gave a prompt that I want to create the full homepage of cursor.com using clean modular HTML code. And it's going to basically go ahead and start writing code for me. Okay, so this is the part where we need to wait a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit time. Sometimes it takes less time. But I will also show you the where we kind of get to there. And once we have that, you can start seeing that it's starting to create the first file, index.html. And once again, the two more important things is, as a PM, you have to understand, which I think it's pretty basic, but you should be knowing that every page is basically an HTML file. And that file basically contains all the code to show that page. That's all that we need to kind of be mindful of, right? So over time, Cursor starts creating these things, and you would start seeing. Can you please pin the shared screen? The text is at. I can increase the, maybe. Let me see if I can. There we go. Is that helpful? Okay.
Yes, got it. It's better.
Perfect. So now you can see that Cursor is starting to write this bit of code for me already, right? And you can see that I have a folder called Cursor Demo in my computer. And if I go to that folder, you would see that a new file has been created already, okay? And I can then basically open that file on my browser, and that should be good enough to kind of start seeing what the new prototype would look like. So let me share that as well and show you what Cursor was able to create. Let's wait a bit. So it's still writing the CSS, which basically makes it look pretty. So we will just wait for that. And another thing to kind of keep in mind that in the Cursor window, it's very much like a ChatGPT interface, but you're bringing that interface into the IDE, into the development environment. And there's quite a few options here at the bottom. For example, agent that you can select, or you can select the model that you want, and so on and so forth. I do get some questions from the past, like which model should I be using? My suggestion would be use the one that is the cheapest and start from there, or maybe something free, or use the one that you can basically use for at least 1 or 2 hours of prototyping in session. where you can kind of look at and kind of work through the cost of it. So a question on what was the prompt that I originally was basically just saying create the full homepage of cursor.com. That's all. I'll copy that prompt as well here in the message, just in case. So yeah, and let's look at what so now Cursor has done, and it's giving me a message that they have basically created everything, CSS styling, and so on and so forth. So let's look at what basically it created. Yeah, I will go and share a different screen. That's the only thing I'll struggle switching between screens, but hopefully it's going to be fine. So with just one prompt, this is what Cursor has created. Yeah, so you have everything here, and basically it looks good, but does it look exactly like what Cursor looks like? I don't think so, right? So the question would be that, okay, but I need it to look a bit like that. So you need to start making some changes, right? And the way that you make some changes is essentially you can provide some images to Cursor, and you can provide some more text to it, and so on and so forth, right? So what you can do is you can go back to Cursor in that case, and I'll stop and share again. That's one drawback that if I have to change windows, I have to stop and share again, but hopefully it's going to be fine. You can say that this is good. I'll just have a habit of being nice to AI for some reason, but okay, let's just be that. This is good, but I also want some images in the web page. So what I did in order to get the images is I basically provided it some images that I could easily download from Cursor by myself. And basically what I did was I said to Cursor, like, I have created a folder called assets, and that contains all the images that I would like you to kind of start adding into the Cursor, into the web page that you had created. So I basically dropped those folder there and say, like, use the images in the asset folder and add the images in the respective section. That's it. You would not see me throughout this time touching this side, which is basically the index file and so on and so forth. That's not my problem, not something I'm interested in, not something I'd be focused on, right? But my point being, you can easily see that it is starting to kind of figure out all the images that we have, and it will update the relevant HTML first, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And I will also do one more thing in the meantime, is I will show you, 1 second. Yeah. I will also show you while it's kind of creating all of this stuff. Let's wait until it creates this, and then I can show you, like, if you keep down this line and keep prompting Cursor to say, like, this doesn't look like it, I want to try different things, this doesn't look like it, you can get to a very reasonable code and a very reasonable interface as well, right? And I'll show you, I spent some time yesterday, like 30 minutes at max, doing all of the stuff that I'm going to show you today. So which kind of tells you a little bit that it's easier. If I can figure it out, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can figure it out on what that could look like straight away. So let's wait and see. It's updating the CSS. So I'll show you the first iteration of what it generated right now, and then what it was generating for me yesterday. And once again, LLMs are not deterministic. So every time you generate something, your iteration will be different from my iteration, and therefore you would see difference. From where did you open the website? So the way I opened the website is, you see this index.html file that has been created. If you hover over it, it will show you where exactly it is, wherever you have initiated the project. And you can just double click on that file, and it will automatically open that for you. Or you can open that on the browser. That's basically all that you have to do. Another question, can we give prompts to define what I want in the page, like right button, call to action? Exactly, you can. That's a use case that we will, that's exactly what we will try and do as well right after this. Also possible to update a Figma presentation? Absolutely, it is possible to update that. So you can add a Figma, or you can basically also like put an entire wireframe, and it will do that for you as well. And yes, we can make it clickable. We'll go through that, all of that example. I'm glad I have prepared for it. I'm very happy about that. So let me share my screen once again of the browser of what we are seeing. There we go. So this is what we were seeing beforehand, right? Like before I gave the prompt to cursor and I said that, no, this is not good enough. I want some pictures. I don't know how it looks like because I haven't seen the code. I'm just going to refresh it and see what it looks like. Okay, so it seems like there is some background now. There is some colors here. I see some of the images are already in here now, as you can see. There is some more images, and you can see here, like it has some action to it. Every time you hover over it, it moves slightly. I don't know if you can feel that. And these buttons are also clickable, by the way. So you can, in theory, click on these buttons. We just haven't linked them to anything yet. But you can, in theory, click into all of them, right? This is cool. And I'll show you very quickly what I was able to create in 30 minutes of prompting to cursor. This is what I was able to create. So when you load it, you see the action of scrolling up slowly. You see all the things. And I gave a command that, look, the tab, or these sections can be very nicely done. You can change this, you can change that. So prompting for like 5 minutes, you get to a page which is reasonably good, and you see all the things. And if you compare this to the original website, I don't think it looks quite different. Yes, I don't have the testimonials or these icons and stuff, but I didn't bother that much. But you can see all the things look quite similar and this is the page that I created, by the way. And all of this has been done in the last, let's say, 15, 20 minutes. So what I'm trying to explain here is this is the speed at which you can start going towards a prototype. And basically, you can come to a new thing and you can try doing something different as well. Okay. So we're good. This is good. This solves the page and so on and so forth. And we will also give a prompt to cursor after this to basically create another page for us, which is a features page. So if you go to features page, there's a lot of different things here, right? And I want this to be created as well in cursor, by a cursor in my local environment. So I can give it a prompt now. Let me stop sharing and share again. And this is, it might feel a bit slow in the beginning, well, relatively slow in the beginning, but once you have these pages created, I'll show you how fast it is to move from there. Like you basically just tell them something and that's basically taken care of. So let's say we go back to cursor and say like, okay, this is good enough. Let's create, I actually have a copy of that. So I'm just gonna do that instead of writing again. So I gave a prompt that, okay, this is good enough, but I think we should create a feature page as well. Recreate the full feature page, which is the same link, cursor.com/features, using clean code. And if there are images needed as a placeholder for them, or use any images that I have provided. Yeah, cannot type before. There we go. So now we are giving an instruction to cursor that, okay, let's stick with the home page. That is good enough. Let's move on to the new page. And I want you to create a features page, okay? And the idea would be that cursor would automatically go to the link that we have provided, scan that page, look and understand how the code is being built. It does a visual search. It doesn't do a code search. It does a visual search to see how the code is built, and then tries to recreate that by itself using HTML and CSS. It can go ahead and create that in Node.js or React as well if you want. But as I said before, like if you're not a developer, that shouldn't bother you that much because that's not the point that you're trying to prove. You shouldn't be worried about building the Node application or so on and so forth when all you're trying to do is build a prototype. And we go back to the basics for these things, which is HTML and CSS. So now you can see that cursor is starting to kind of look into this and it's trying to kind of create a prototype. I will, through the magic of some things, I'll also show you that when I tried this, you can see that there's a new feature page that is added already now, right here. I'll show you what I was able to create through the magic of just this prompt. And this will answer the question someone had, like, can it be made clickable or not? So let me go back. Yeah, this is the homepage looks exactly the same, right? and there is this header on the features. I can just click on features and it created this page for me now. So to me, it seems like it looks quite similar, and it's good enough for me to say like, okay, I'm in a good place now. I can get started, and I can click on the cursor button. It takes me back to the home page as well. So very easily, you have a wireframe now on how to move between different pages, and this is all locally. There is no code that is being fetched from internet, or I'm not using Cursor's website and so on and so forth. Okay. So did you create the asset folder and preload the images then? Yes, I did create it. You can go ahead and ask them to generate it as well if you want, but my suggestion would be you can simply go ahead and recreate it, and you can download them. The way to do it is basically right-click on any of the image on cursor and basically just save them into a folder that you want. Once again, it's purely for demonstration. If you feel like that's not needed, honestly, I wouldn't bother. I would just go about it. But I just wanted to make it look a bit pretty, so I spent like 5 minutes to download those images and put it in the assets folder within my cursor working directory. Yeah. Cool. So this is all done. Now let's move. And now, in the meantime, our actual working, what we were trying to build and the prompt that I gave also has run through. And you can remember this is the old code. It's the home page that it was generated. Now we have a new page. Hopefully it shows up. I will see if it's not linked. Sorry. There we go. We have a new page that Cursor created for us right away. All of this was created based on that one prompt that I gave, and I will write that prompt for you here as well, which basically said, okay, this is good, but I think we should also create a feature page as well. Just by giving this much prompt, I was able to get this much results. And it's not too far from the image that I created, like for features. If you can look at this, this is what I created, which is pretty cool. I think it's pretty good. So now we have working feature page. Now we have a working homepage. Which among is the favorable for PMs who doesn't know coding at all? As I said, like I'll answer this right away if that's fine. You can use Lovable, you can use Cursor, Bolt. All of them are pretty amazing. However, be mindful that you will be tying yourself into a stack if you're using Lovable. As I said, Lovable, if you want to say, like, I want to build an application that does this thing, you would need a backend for that application. And in that application, Cursor, Lovable would always tell you to use their own database, which is Supabase. And you can do that, but you'll have to pay for it and so on and so forth. Let's say you have an AWS instance or a Google instance where you already have a database and you want to use your local thing and so on and so forth, you would struggle for that for certain. And also moving that whole development out to your local instance to give it to your developers and so on and so forth is a bit painful from what we are seeing. I'm pretty sure they're working on it, especially the Lovable team is working on it. They're a Swedish company, as I mentioned. Their offices are very close to Spotify's head office, and we meet them quite regularly. They're working on these things for certain. But as of now, I've tried to be as agnostic as I can and not lock myself up into a single vendor to say. So Cursor, on the other hand, is just a wrapper that sits on top of VS Code, which is free, basically. And that's why you don't pay anything for Cursor, right? So it's basically free, agnostic to a stack, agnostic to an environment that you're kind of working on. Okay, so let's move on. And I said, let's move on to the actual problems we had, right? The actual problems. Now you have these two pages, and you want to do the hypothesis that I think developers prefer apps where they have this ability, or this website where they have this ability to switch between the light and the dark theme, right? What I mean by that is, if even in Cursor, for example, if you go to Cursor, you see this layout. I can, in theory, if only I can figure this out. Yes, I can, in theory, change this theme to Cursor dark, right? And this is a very common feature that you see on websites, and especially developer websites. There is a thing about developers that if they see a product that understands the needs of developers, they kind of relate to it a lot faster, as opposed to a product that, or a website, for example, that looks like it was built for marketers or built for artists or so on and so forth, right? So this feature to be able to kind of select between, let's say, different themes, it is something that people really like. And I like the dark theme all the time. I've intentionally done it light so that you can see it properly. right? Otherwise, it becomes too dark, in my opinion. But yeah, so let's say we want to do that. So going back to our prototype, what we have built so far, right? I think it would be pretty cool if we could have a feature on top left or somewhere here next to sign in, which says like, I want to have a toggle of some sorts where if I press on that button, it basically becomes a light theme. Basically, everything changes to what I showed you with cursor. And if I do it back, it kind of gets back to the way things are. Yeah. So let's do that. Let's try and see what we have so far. Let's try and add that feature. And this is where you start actually prototyping. This is where as a PM, you're like, that would be a good feature to add. So let's just do that. So we go back to cursor and say, OK, all of this sounds good. Wait, I forgot I already have written this down. So I'll copy paste rather than you seeing me copy. So I added this prompt, and I will read through that prompt as well, and basically share it here as well. Can we say that cursor for PM is creating Figma for their ideas or creating a working prototype? Yes, you can say that. It is mostly for the working prototype, in my opinion. Figma is good, but I think you have to learn Figma to some extent. I've tried working with Figma from a prototyping perspective or workflow perspective. It is good, but you need to work with a UI or a UX expert to be able to kind of build good copies of things, right? Whereas here you can straight away go into implementation that you can show real things, and I'll show you very quickly like how that some features of what you can do with cursor cannot be done immediately using Figma. For example, this dark and light theme. Let's try doing that in cursor. So I'm also writing the prompt that I'm writing in the chat as well, so that you can also copy that. But basically, I said like, all right, this is good. Let's move on to the next steps. And I gave Cursor some prompt that since Cursor is a developer application and developers love to see a toggle button where they can view the pages in light and dark mode, I wanted to create this toggle button and place it on top right of at the top right on left of sign in and download button. Every time I toggle this, not everything, wrong prompt. Every time I toggle this, the theme changes for all the pages. You can, in theory, do this and say like change the theme only for home page as well if you want. But let's say like we want to do this for all pages. And we send this to Cursor. Cursor, basically the LLM model behind it, we are using Cloud for now. You can basically start saying that it understands what it wants to do. It will start making changes to your existing code already. Okay. And it suggests that I will change HTML files and so on and so forth, whatever. I honestly don't care. It's fine for me, as long as you're making the changes that you want. And basically, we do that. So while it's adding that, I will show you a copy of what I tried when I gave this prompt, what came out for me. So let me share my screen one more time. In the meantime, hopefully, Cursor will have already added all this different stuff as well. So there we go. So automatically, Cursor created this small icon, as you can see, left to the sign in button. And it gives me this option to click on it. And every time, maybe I can go to the home screen first. Click on it. And every time I click on it, the theme changes, as you can see. And you can also see the icon changes as well. To someone asking like prototyping versus Figma, this is quite hard to do in Figma, in my opinion, through one prompt. Whereas here, you can easily start adding those kind of functionalities. And be mindful, all of this has been done in the last 15 minutes. We haven't tried much here. So I'm also waiting for Cursor while I'm speaking to finish this on the real demo that we are kind of focusing on. I think it should be done within a minute or so. But basically, you can add that immediately now, and you can try and say that, tell this to your users or to your to your stakeholders that this is what I want. I want this icon. You can change this icon as well if you want, or you can change this kind of thing. So you have like a working prototype that you can easily kind of work from now. Okay, and I'm still waiting, but you can see that this works quite well on both homepage as well as on the features page, because we said that I want you to kind of do this on both the sides. Okay? So it actually creates icon, etc. We can font it. Yes, you can. You can always provide all that kind of stuff as well. You can say like, don't use the night and the day icon. Use, I don't know, red and green icon, black and dark icon. The last time I did it, by the way, it gave a very different icon to me. It was a black and white sun and moon as opposed to this. So hopefully we are lucky and it will kind of give us that as well. So Yes, it automatically creates the icons as well. So let's take a look at what Cursor created based on the prompt that we just gave. As you can see, this is the features page that we had created, right? I'll refresh it. There you go. So there is a button now. This is the button that I was telling you about. It is a black and white thing. You can basically click that and it goes to light and dark theme. And you can see that there is some improvements that we can do. For example, these feature cards, they have images, but it's very small. So we can give a prompt to Cursor that, look, feature page looks good, but the features, the images in each of the feature are very small. Increase that size more. So the point being, you can start creating more pages, start adding more features one by one, and basically say that, do that. And I don't want to touch this. You do that and show me what it is. I'll prompt you. This, once again, drawing inference back from something like ChatGPT, because a lot of you can also do that in ChatGPT, but you cannot immediately bring it to your code base, which is what Cursor can do for you immediately, right? So I think we have spent like 30 minutes, and since 30 minutes, we have been able to create a home page. As you can see, we have been able to create a features page, and we have been able to kind of set up a light and dark theme already. So far, so good. Anyone has any follow-up questions? If not, I see no hands. If not, let's move on, and let's move on to something that I actually did at my company, and it's something that seems very simple yet makes so much sense, right? So if you go to Cursor website, let's go to their original website. Okay, so this is their original website. Yeah, they have this option called sign in, right? There is a hypothesis that is available in a lot of different tech companies that the way you make your copy changes make a lot of impact in the way that actually results in actions of the users. So, for example, there's a sign in button, and I think this is a bit hidden, and it by default assumes that I have an account. And I don't think that's a good idea, because by default, people think that, oh, it's only for users who have an account. But I don't like that. I want to be in a place where I get to decide and basically make it a bit more action oriented for users. So what I can do is I can share my cursor again and basically say like, let me see what was the right application, but I think I don't have the prompt, so I'll write it down. Okay, so let's write a prompt that this is good. I also want to change the copy sign in to try now in the header section for all the pages. At the same time, I want the background of this button to be white, the same as the download button. Okay. So that's another thing that I wanted to kind of try it out and see what that happens. Yeah. So if you knew HTML and if you were into coding, you can do that probably immediately by just changing this sign in button class to basically to something else. But I don't want to do that. I really don't care about it. And at the same time, I want to change that to try now. As you can see, it's already changed that. And I want to see what that would look like, right? So I also change the background as well, because that's a bit more complicated, because you need to go into the CSS file, you need to do a lot of different changes. You can now do all of that immediately into Cursor, and it basically lets you do all of that. And you can see that it has already made the changes. So let's go back to our application and see what Cursor has done. I'll share the right one. Give me 1 second. There we go. So this is the one what it looked like before we provided the change. As you can see, it still says sign in. Now it has changed to try now, as you can see here. Okay. And the reason why I derailed this conversation from our hypothesis a bit, because we literally at Spotify did this change, and it resulted in a plus 1.55 percentage point uplift in signups. So you never can underestimate the importance of copy changes. That's another reason why a lot of times you want to make copy changes and it becomes very hard to explain that. In this case, it's pretty simple, of course, so you don't really, it's just try now. But imagine you had to make that copy change to all of this section or this kind of section, and you want to see how that would look like. You want to convince our users that this is what we want this to look like. Just telling them to use this is much, and versus showing them, there's a huge difference. So be able to show them, it's insanely good. So I'll show you a copy of what I created yesterday, and this is what it looks like. So now we have a try now, and when you go to the light, the dark theme, this changes to automatically to dark and black, right? My point being, this is a lot of different things that you can do, and you can try it and basically work through it. Any questions so far? Because otherwise we will move to our next hypothesis, which is more of a reasonable product problem as opposed to the shenanigans that I've been showing so far. This is okay. It's not the most exciting stuff. Okay, if not, then let's move to the next hypothesis. Yeah. So now the thing is, we have this page in Cursor where we have the home page, and then we have the features page, which essentially contains all these features, right? As you can see, all these different things. So imagine someone wants to know that I can use my existing documentation, but I need to scroll all the way down to know that that feature exists. That's pretty poor, in my opinion. I think imagine someone making a decision to try Cursor purely because they wanted this documentation feature and that doesn't exist or we don't see it, right? So what would be nice is if more users could see, once again, going back to my presentation, if more users could see the feature list, basically all the features that cursors show you here, all of these features, right? If you could see all of that in upfront in the home page, I believe that sign-up rates will improve. Let's say that's the problem that we're trying to solve, okay? So what we want is, as a PM, you want to build this thing where all of these features should go into my homepage, maybe somewhere below here. And basically, it's like a carousel, right, where it keeps shuffling from left to right. And basically, you can see all of that feature. And that way, you believe that this will increase the sign-up rates. That's a hypothesis. And you want to test it. In the past, you would have to go to Figma, prototype it, see what it would look like, and so on and so forth. Let's work with another alternative within Cursor then, right? So you can go back. Let's go back to Cursor. Where is my cursor? There we go. And yes. So now we will go back to Cursor, and so far we have made some changes. It looks like you don't have permission to create or edit files in your current directory. This is likely to work with my setup. It is possible that your workspace is you're using your office laptop. If it's a MacBook, in the beginning of Cursor install, Cursor asks you for permissions to access the workplace or folders. You have to allow it. If you allow it, it basically should be good to go. So going back to, I hope this is all right. I'm also fielding questions while I'm kind of answering because I can see it, and then you don't have to wait for me. So I'm going to give another prompt to Cursor. Basically, I have copied it here, and I'll write this down, but I will share it here as well. Let me see. No, this is good. Let's give me 1 second. I'm just checking what I wrote down, and it seems like that's a lot of text. But yeah, okay. So basically, I said like this is good. Now for the next step, I have a hypothesis that if more users see the features and so on and so forth. So what I want is I would like to bring all the features that we can show on the feature page, such as find context, multi-commands, and so on and so forth, whatever it is. I didn't even specify the full list. Use images and all this kind of stuff into one section in the form of a carousel that keeps moving from left to right automatically. So I ask Cursor immediately, like, don't start writing things out, because you can also speak to Cursor and say, like, what do you think of this hypothesis? Don't implement anything. First, suggest how will you do this. Okay. So this way, this is very much like talking to ChatGPT, right? Where you're brainstorming ideas, like, what do you think this would be a good idea? Oh yeah. Let me share that prompt with you as well. Give me 1 second. I'm waiting for Cursor to say something. In the meantime, I will share the prompt here as well. Next time I see it, let's ignore it. Oh, I can just simply get it from here. I don't know why I'm searching for this. I can copy this and I can share it. There we go. So let's see what Cursor said. Yeah. So Cursor think this is a good hypothesis. It's a solid UX strategy, and there is reasoning behind it. Once again, ideation, something that you do very easily with ChatGPT. We are going one step forwards. It says that I would suggest we can design a carousel, which basically has manual navigation, infinite loops, 3 to 4 visible feature, and so on and so forth. And then there is a technical implementation plan. Whatever, I'll say like, sure, let's go for it. Implement it. So now we think that what Cursor is suggesting us that we can do a carousel. We will have 3 to 4 features visible at once on the desktop. It will keep looping from left to right, and it will keep scrolling within every 4 to 5 seconds. Seems like a reasonable implementation. Seems like something that could be a very good feature to show. So we will just tell Cursor to kind of get started and basically start doing it. Yeah. What I will do is I will show you in the meantime, when I did this, while Cursor is generating this as well, when I did this, what did I end up getting? Okay. This is the wrong. That's the one. So this is the image that this is the previous version that I was showing that I was able to kind of build on this dark and night feature, right? And I will also go to the, yeah. I was able to build something similar. If I go to Cursor, here. So, oh, in my case, I built it above, but you can see, let's go in dark light mode. I was able to now add another section, which basically say all the powerful features. So all the things that you see here and a carousel here, which basically moves and keeps showing me all the different things as well. There is a slider and there's these icons. Basically all the features that I wanted to kind of move, multi-line edits, smart rewrites, and so on and so forth. My hypothesis was that I wanted to move it to the home page, and now they have been moved. There's a new section that is created. Cursor added some text already. You can change this if you want, the copy as well, and created for me a feature which essentially is working as well. So you didn't need to write any code. You didn't need to do any kind of huge prototyping and so on and so forth, or like add these kind of functionalities. And I don't know if you noticed, but it automatically moves. As you can see, I'm not pressing anything, but after every 3 or 4 seconds, the carousel keeps moving, right? So that's a huge improvement in the way that we would do prototyping if you compare this to do, let's say, Figma, for example, right? Just if someone was asking how is it different from Figma, this is the difference. This is how powerful it is that within a few clicks, you are able to kind of get to this much stuff straight away. And you can go and show to your stakeholders or to your front-end team that, look, this is what I want. Can you implement this? Is this possible for you to do this? If not, like what exactly is the case, and so on and so forth, right? I'm waiting for, yeah, actually it's done already. So the prompt that I gave to Cursor like a minute ago, it's already ready. So let's see, I'm going back to the file that we have started creating, and I've kept it this way intentionally so that we can differentiate between my previous generated code versus what we are doing right away. And we refresh it, and you can see now, let's go into light mode. Cursor has started adding this feature already. So you can see that all of this thing has been added to your home page now. Okay. And mind you, I'll repeat it again and again because it might look like there's a lot of magic happening here. All of that code is being written by Cursor. I'm not even testing it. I'm not even checking it. I don't even know what they're creating. I know that Cursor has created some new JavaScripts and some theme toggle functionalities. I honestly don't care because I wouldn't be able to read it. So for me, what is more important is I want to show something like this to my users, to my stakeholders, and get some ideation going on, right? So this is what Cursor created with just one prompt that I provided. Of course, when I was trying this out and preparing a little bit, I kind of gave a few more prompts or like just talked to it a little bit more. Like, for example, I increased the image sizes a little bit and so on and so forth. You can do all of that stuff as well within a session. Within like an hour session, you can get to that. But my point being, within an hour, within the last 45 minutes, we have been able to get to a place where we started from scratch, created this page, created another page, added a functionality of toggle, and then brought some more pages, some features, brought some more section or added a few more product, like a feature changes within our website with the aim of certain signups and so on and so forth, right? Can you feed cursor reference images of how you want the UX to look? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. So for example, I can, in theory, copy paste the actual website of cursor and say, like, can you make sure that the UI looks like this? Actually, let's try it. Let's try it right away. So I'm going to go back to my cursor. I hope you can see my screen. And I'm going to take a screenshot of the actual website. And let's see, there we go. And I'm going to go into the cursor and paste that screenshot. You might see that there is an image that has popped up now, right? There you go. That's the image. So I've said the home page looks good, but not good enough. I've attached an image. Make it look like that. And that's basically it. So I'm adding a reference image to say that I want the UX to look like this. And cursor starts thinking like header has the logo, I want to kind of do this, and so on and so forth. And it starts adding like, okay, and it's making these changes. Yeah. Hope that helps. Yeah. And we will see, of course, I want to show you what it did as well, because a lot of times it hallucinates at times, but generally with this kind of prompt, it should be quite all right. Yeah. And if that is clear, I'll wait for it. There's one more thing that I want to add on, and that's probably coming from my background as a data person, is as a PM, you always want to get some data of what's happening, right? Like you want to understand, like, okay, I made this change, but what does that mean? Like, how would I record this information? How would I, like, going back to the theme, right? So the theme change. Go ahead, let me see if I can, yeah, that we want to have a dark and light theme. I want to check whether this is effective or not, right? Because as a PM, you are trying to see what's the impact of the changes that I'm trying to make. You can also do, and the way that PMs do this is basically they have event management or event structure, right? For every action or a click or scroll that can happen on the website, you can associate an event with it, right? And every time that I've spoken to, I've been on both the sides, on the engineering side, as well as on the product and the marketing side. Every time as a marketer, I go to my engineering team and say like, yeah, this is good, you can implement it, but how will I measure it? They're like, yeah, we need to create an event. That's an event bus. Can you tell me how would you like this event, and so on and so forth? I lose a lot of people there, right? Because that's where another problem occurs that I have no idea about what I'm going to do with it. How am I going to use that event, and so on and so forth, right? So let's we have some time. So I'm going to give one more example is what if we could, every time a user toggles the dark and light theme, right? We could record that event with the timestamp, with some stuff, so that I can go and tell the engineering team that, look, I want this feature, and I want it in a way that this is what the data should look like for me, at least to begin with. Now, this is the event structure, this is the metadata associated with it, and so on and so forth. You can go ahead and implement it the way you want. It's not my problem, right? Because then we can move on to the next section. Does that feel like a reasonable thing to kind of look into? Thumbs up or down? I see someone said data was my next question, so that's good. But yeah, we can go ahead and implement this. I'm still waiting for Cursor to kind of take a look at the image and basically regenerate things. As you can see that this using reference image can take time because Cursor has to read through everything, scan everything, but it will come to a point. For example, it's already adding a missing Apple logo on the primary button. So it's kind of adding an Apple icon as well, which is kind of pretty good if you think of it. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and prepare myself to basically add a prompt that I want to do for adding tracking to my toggle button, right? So while I wait for this, I can show you what I mean by that in the meantime. Oh, see, this is what I was saying, like it's starting to kind of struggle a little bit. Let me use a simple clean Apple logo that matches better. I don't care, use whatever you want. That's okay, because now we had a wireframe. Oh, there you go. It's done now already. So let's go and see what it did. Okay. Uh, yeah, this is the previous layout. Let's refresh and see what cursor was able to create. Wow, that's completely different. Definitely not what we were expecting, but there is a change. It drew some inspiration from the image that we attached, and we could kind of do that. So probably not the strongest example, but it kind of works to some extent, if that makes sense. Yeah. Any question? Does that answers the, yeah, I think that answers Sia's question around feeding cursor reference images. Yeah. Let's move on to the last section, because I think that will take us 5-10 minutes. And then if you have any questions, I don't know, Swati, you can tell me what we would like to do. But let's go back to cursor. And what I want to do is I want to give a prompt now to cursor to say, like, this is all good and fine, but I want to have tracking enabled, right? So I'll share the prompt here as well. So I'm going to give a prompt that, can you add an event tracking for the toggle button? I want it to record in local storage as well as in logs. What I mean by that is you can ignore this step as well, but because I know a little bit about it, so I'll say, like, I want an event associated with it, and I want to be able to see that event is being registered and so on and so forth, right? And what I want is every time we toggle the theme, I want to get the data associated with that. That's all we want to do. Yeah? So we'll give that prompt, and let's see what cursor does. Yeah? So it tries to understand, and it says that I'll add comprehensive event tracking for the theme toggle. Let me first check the current theme toggle implementation, and it will start enhancing it. Okay. In the meantime, once again, as I've been doing this, while cursor is generating this, I'll show you briefly what I was able to implement, right? And what cursor could show me. I will have to show the, yeah, okay. So let's see. I'll share my screen one more time. This is the most screen switch I've ever done in a very long time, but hopefully it's all right. Okay, so this is my implementation, right? As you can see here, and there is this toggle button. Now, every time we do this, there is a data that is being recorded. How do I check that? And this is why I provided this prompt, that local storage and so on and so forth, is you can inspect that. And this becomes a bit technical, but you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is go to your console, and you can see, Swati, can you tell me whether people can see the inspect and the developer tools and stuff? Because I shared my window the whole time. Can they see
Not
the,
right now. Okay, yes, yeah, can see.
can they see this aspect, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So every time I switch, I click on the theme, you can see there's a new event that gets generated. And this data basically contains all the information on when it happened, from, to, what was the user agent, what was the page URL, screen size, session ID, and so on and so forth. Okay. So basically, you're starting to capture that data as well. And I also created, I think, this function called get theme analytics. Whenever I press this, I get a detailed table that essentially gives me all the information that people have done, like in a tabular format of the, like, when users switched from dark to light and so on and so forth, right? So you can use this very easily afterwards, or provide this format to your engineering team and say, like, I want tracking in this particular format straight away. And they should be able to get you that. If not, they will give you a very reasonable reason, or maybe not the reasonable reason, to tell you, like, why they can't do it. But cursor, because of the implementation, you can already see what is reasonable and what is realistic for you to kind of generate. Okay. So in the meantime, while I was showing you this, the prompt that I gave to cursor has already run. It's finished now. And let's see what it was able to generate. So this is our application. I cannot guarantee if that works, but let's try it out. Yeah, I thought it won't work. Let's see. Is there a tracking data? Yeah, so cursor suggested that you use this command. Cursor, did I refresh it or not? Yeah, that's why, that's the problem. I didn't refresh it. So if, let's say, go and inspect it, go to console. Every time you do it, you can see that there is a theme toggle that is being generated. And this is all the data that you need to be able to basically know when what happened. And maybe going a bit more practical now, because you will say like, hey, what am I gonna do with this data, right? How am I gonna get this data? And a lot of time, I'm just writing one thing that Cursor suggested to me, that you can use this function. So I'm curious to basically get all the data, and that's what you're seeing. Like every time you can see I'm changing the theme, it's starting to add this. So the reason why this is important, can we spotlight the screen? It's difficult to read, follow. Of course, we can do that. Would you mean is this good enough? The spotlighting
Can
of
you
the
make
screen?
it bigger this side?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
good? Brilliant.
Better.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So you can see that this is all the metadata that you have. You don't, once again, depending on your level of technicality, you might enjoy this, you might hate it. I am indifferent to it, but you can see that there is data that is starting to be captured, what time, what things, and so on and so forth, right? And the reason why this is important and tracking is important is now, because you are generating this data already, you can tell your engineering team to essentially, I'll stop sharing actually, because I'm basically finished on that. No, actually, I have to go to the presentation. Give me 1 second. So what I was going to say is you can tell to your engineering team that this is what I need. This is the data format I need. And some of you might know some event tracking systems like Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager. You might use mixed panels. You might, I don't know, a lot of different kind of event tracking. Amplitude are the kind of tools that you can use. You can use this tracking to feed that data directly into Amplitude or Google Analytics, and you can start viewing them there already. So what I'm trying to say is you are not only helping your engineers figure out what you want them to do, but you're also giving them the next step as well on how you want to see this data. And as a PM, that process can take weeks at times. Even at scale, for example, for Spotify, being able to get this kind of data would take almost a week and a half at times. And that's crazy if you think of it, right? So if you have a hypothesis and you want to test it out, you can not only develop that hypothesis, work on that, show it to your stakeholders, but also show technical implementation ideas to your engineering team straight away. And that's the beauty of it, right? So this is where I stop with the work. I hope everything was somewhat clear and so on and so forth. But to kind of sum up, there was a question, there was one thing that I wanted to see, what other use cases are there, right? So in terms of other use cases, in theory, with Cursor, you can build the entire application as well. So if you are fancy with understand the front end, back end terminology, so far we are just using front end. You could spin up a backend and a database as well within Cursor and start storing this data as well. So all the event data that I showed you, the dark toggle themes, you can set up a MySQL database and say like store this in my local MySQL database, and then you have a running application as well. You can do that, right? And but the moment you start getting there is the same kind of thing that someone was asking about Lovable versus Bolt. You have an option then. Like, do you want to build everything within Cursor? Do you want to build within Lovable, Bolt? And my strategy is, however comfortable you feel with the tech stack, select that. Like if Lovable or like Bolt is the tool that you really like and you feel comfortable with it, go for it. Because at this point in time, the moment you start integrating backend, observability, all this kind of stuff, you are already way beyond what prototyping is, right? You're moving beyond that stuff already. So you don't really need that much stuff, at least from a prototyping perspective. There is another use case that if you were following the recent, if not, I would really recommend you to read that, to watch that video. There is a Google I/O event happened very recently, and someone shared a very nice video. They were basically prototyping where they had an image of, they wanted a feature where there is a they have an album of like 100 images or a collage that they want to create, which rotates around a globe or something. They basically drew it on a piece of paper and essentially dropped it into Notebook LM or Cursor, wherever you would feel like, and say like, build this feature for me. And basically the LLM ended up building that exact prototype for them. And that's a huge improvement in one prompt, if you can think about it. And the whole thing, maybe they took like 3 prompts. That's like what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? That's a huge improvement. Imagine you had to build that with a UI designer or with a front-end engineer. The amount of time that it will take to do that is probably days, if not probably a full week or something, right? So there are quite a lot of use cases in how you can do this prototyping, which can feel daunting in the beginning because you get to see this crazy amount of code written by an LLM. But if you eliminate that, then you can also just basically use that. Then they use Cursor very easily, just like you use ChatGPT. There's a question, can we use our own design system? Yes, you can. If I understand, design system is like you have your own like style sheets, variables, and basically a design, like, let's say like icons and so on and so forth. Is that what you're referring to?
That is correct.
Yeah, easily. You can either download it and put it locally, or if you have GitHub, a lot of times these things end up in GitHub or other kind of places. You can simply link to that GitHub repository, and it will automatically read from it as well. So we have Spotify's design system is called Encore, and basically it's quite a what I want to say. It's very open source. I don't know if it's open source, but basically it's the design system that Spotify follows. And I've added a link as well here. And basically, it's in the form of a tool or a repository that we directly have an API connection to, and we just read from there and build everything from there straight away. Yep. So I hope that answers your question. I'm gonna move on. And finally, that's all that I had to present. That's all that I had on my side when it comes to prototyping. I think it went better than what I was thinking, but I'll leave that to you. I think you learned a few more bits from here into what you can do with Cursor. And I would say on the closing side of things, that's Cursor is not the only tool. It's just some of the things that I've been working on, maybe for the last 2 weeks or something. So that's all the experience that I had with Cursor as well. So the opportunities or the limitations, there is no limitations, to be honest, like what you want to do. You just prompt. The thing that is important is how do you prompt is more important, and what do you prompt than the actual code it will generate. You can go ahead with that. Yeah. And I mentioned this before as well. A question that I get a lot of time is which model should I use, or what we should go for. As I said, like, use the model that you think is affordable enough for you, because these things can rack up cost quite effectively. From a prototyping perspective, if you have unlimited resource or budget, yeah, of course, go for the highest quality because you'll get the biggest gains. But if you're prototyping for some ideas, I would just go with the easiest model and see how that performs. And if it's not good enough, move to the next one, and so on and so forth. So that's all that I had. Someone asked Cursor versus UXPilot. I will be honest, I haven't tried UXPilot. I don't know what that looks like, but it seems like that could be another option for you to try it out. The reason why, I just had a quick look at it, by the way. My only drawback is it integrates very well. It's built with the UX in mind, but not with tech in mind. So if you want to export that thing and share it with the developers, I don't know how that looks, but I don't have a thought on it, because to be honest, like I probably, to be Cursor seems like a very good roughly free alternative, because it gives you a lot of prompts for free in the beginning. So you can just basically go ahead and use that. Yeah. And you can also bring your own model, by the way, in Cursor. So if you go to Gemini or something, there's like tons of open source model, which you can download and just feed that to Cursor and say, like, look, don't use any of these paid models. Use my model, which is free, and just keep using it for as long as you can. I've done a lot of development. You can download Llama, for example, for free. I've done a lot of development there, and it works really well. Yeah.
So, Gaurav, I have a question. Credits wise, like Lovable, Bolt, all of these have their monthly tiers, right? How does Cursor stand there?
They don't have a credit system. So basically, the
Okay.
way that Cursor works is you pay for the model that you're going to be using. So, for example, when I was selecting all of this, I was using like, I have a list of models. Let me share my screen. I can show you very quickly as well. Yeah, so I was simply prompting here, but there's a lot of things here as well. So you can see that there's quite a few models, right? And you can add a model as well. So these are the models that I have added and basically have some subscriptions for. And essentially, I can decide which one I want to use. I can also use an auto, which basically selects the best model that you have for the problem that you're trying to solve. Uh, but basically, you pay for the usage of these models, not Cursor itself, right? Cursor is a very thin wrapper that is built on VS Code, and it's free. Yeah?
So if it's Gemini, it's free basically, right? Or you just download Llama and, as you said.
You can download Llama
Yeah.
and basically add a model and say like, I want to use Llama, and basically you can basically just go ahead and do that. For example, I have certain models already added. I can add API keys for a few more. Let's say, for example, OpenAI and so on and so forth. You can see Google, you have Anthropic, Azure as well. And I'm pretty certain you can, there's Bedrock as well. You're pretty certain that you can add Llama model as well directly to your local computer. And that's basically good to go for you.
Got it. And like Lovable, Bold, these enable very seamless integrations with Superbase, basically like as a database, and
Yeah.
possibly a few others, storing in Git, like saving in Git. All of that, is that seamless with Cursor as well, or
It's
how have you
it's
seen that?
it's not well. It depends on how you define that, because what Lovable will do is it will automatically create the database. And let's say you're starting from scratch, it will create the database for you. It will also generate API keys, because a database is in Superbase, you're working on Lovable, they need to communicate to each other, and therefore that's why you need API keys, right? It will automatically create those API keys, secrets, and so on and so forth, which you will not be able to do in Cursor automatically. But if you ask Cursor, like, I want to link it with Superbase, help me do the entire thing, it will ask you questions. So do you have the API key? Like, no. How do you generate it? Go ahead and generate it from here, put it on there,
Okay,
and you can basically go from there. So
got
basically,
it. So
you
you
can
have
do
a
all the things.
account,
Yeah,
like you create a separate account in Superbase, get the API key, and
exactly.
link it. Got it. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can link it. Yeah. Someone asked, do you think you can create a deployment solution via Cursor as a PM? I think you can. I don't think there's anything wrong. Like what we just developed, in theory, you can deploy it. It will do some purpose, but it will not be like absolutely like a production ready application. But I think that bit is very much, maybe it can be the limitation is uh, if you're deploying a product or a website, let's just say website, right? You need to think through it, that what exactly will happen, what exactly it's the purpose of it, right? For example, you create something like this, and the idea was, I have this example, by the way, it's of someone I know, that he created this open website accessible to everyone, where you can write something like ChatGPT and it will do a call to OpenAI and basically give you the results. And you think that that's pretty good, right? There's nothing wrong with it, except the fact that there's like thousands of people who are waiting to just do a DDoS attack on that. They will basically exhaust all of your credits immediately. So in a given minute, there's like 1,000 people going there, and the next thing you know, you have $10,000 worth of bill in like 15 minutes or something, right? So point being, with Cursor, you need to think this through by yourself, right? You need to have a very good understanding of how can you make deployment ready projects or products, right? So a lot of Spotify and a lot of big companies right now use Cursor because they give this not to their non-technical audience, but to their engineers to basically help them move fast. That doesn't mean that they will just do, LLMs will do all the deployments. Engineers have to be very much involved in basically making sure that they do the right thing and do the thought process goes behind as well. And I think that's the reason why there is this debate, right? Like AI will replace humans or not, that kind of thing. I don't think that we are there yet in any case. Yeah. So another question, can we integrate LLM API in Cursor like Gemini APIs? Can you maybe elaborate more? I'm not sure uh, if I understand that.
Yeah, so hi Gaurav, Madhuri here. So my question is that let's say we have created a application, maybe let's say a meal planner, and maybe like we want to give all our inputs on our allergies and diet, and then we want some like Gemini or other ChatGPT API to create our meal plan based on the inputs we are providing. So can we give Cursor that prompt that maybe have a text box, take our inputs, and then when we click submit, call a API in the backend and get us the inputs in a particular format. Like those integrations can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're describing is basically a working product, and a lot of these products are built on VS Code or other IDEs. Cursor is just a layer on top of it that will facilitate to build you that. That's basically it. But you can ask Cursor that, hey, build me the front end, build me the back end, and every time front end someone gives me this prompt, run this API call to ChatGPT or OpenAI and give me the result and display it. You can basically build the full functionality aspect in Cursor. It's just, once again, Cursor helps you write the code that you can easily see and deploy, which if you were using a VS Code or something would be impossible to kind of go with. Now VS Code has this Copilot edition as well, so you can use that as well. But Cursor is just one of the free alternatives that you can use. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Gaurav, I think there was a question you missed. Preeti asked, what do you think is better for students? A prototyping tool, Cursor versus Lovable, probably. Is that what you meant, Preeti? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if I put myself, and basically I was a student probably 12, 13, 14 years ago. So at that time, the primary constraint was for me to get to a place where I have something working with the least amount of investment. That's the thing that I think of. Maybe I'll answer with that viewpoint. And I said this, like, go with the model that's the cheapest that you can find, right? So Cursor allows you to find cheaper models. Cursor allows you to add new models, which are free. You can download them and store them locally as well. For example, DeepSeek is a free model. Technically, if you can download it and store it locally, you get a lot of knowledge from there as well. So my point being, start with that is what I would always say. Start with something that is for free for you and will give you reasonably, all the stuff that we did, for example, is not rocket science. We are not building like extremely complicated stuff. So any good model that is trained on a few billion parameters should be good enough to get you to this point already. Okay, so to your question, students, go with the one that's the cheapest for you, on preferably free is what I would go with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with that, we're almost at time. Gaurav, I want to thank you very much on behalf of everyone attending. We gained a lot of tips and tricks around how to do this well and how to do it in a structured manner, right? Thank you for showing us that. And with that, I will ask everyone to probably try to switch on their cameras. We'll take a group picture before we drop off.
And I'll share my LinkedIn right away.
Yeah. Hi, Bina. Hi, Tanvi. Hi, Sia. Cool. Taking a picture now. Smile, everyone. Wow. Nice.
Feature that I figured out the other day. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, thank you very much, everyone. It was really
Thank
nice.
you,
I hope
everyone.
whatever I said made some sense and helped you to some extent, because I wasn't sure initially how much of that will be helpful, but I hope it was helpful. And of course, I've added my LinkedIn URL. If you want to connect with me, feel free to do that. Very happy to chat and help you out as much as I can from what I know.
All right, then. Thank you, guys. Bye. Have a good weekend ahead.